Welcome to Guy Code, a podcast dedicated to imparting dad wisdom to my son, with your host, Koji Steven Sakai, and friends.
Welcome. This is Koji, and this is episode number 42 of the Guy Code. I wanted to impart my wisdom to my son, but of course, my son already thinks he knows more than me. So instead of trying to tell him now and having it go one ear and out the other ear, I decided to record them here in the hopes that maybe, just maybe, when he's ready, he'll listen to my advice in the future and not make the same stupid mistakes I did. I'll bring on my guests to impart their wisdom as well, and I have no doubt that my guests' advice will be better than mine. This week, I brought on my best friend from UC Santa Barbara and my life partner, Garrett Naiman. What's up, Garrett? How are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I am good. I'm like I said before, we're first time I'm walking in 3 weeks, so I'm super excited. Life is like you appreciate things when you're unable to walk.
Yeah. Well, I hope that you get permanently better and you don't got to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, me too. I hope so too. Garrett, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I have a 17-month-old child. I'm married to the love of my life, Monica. We live in the Bay Area. My child's name is Nico Atreyu. He's the most magical and wonderful person I've ever met. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor and Dean of Students at University of California, Santa Cruz. I've been working in education my whole career. Like you said, we went to UCSB together. Originally from LA, but have really fallen in love with the Bay Area and see Northern California as my home, but still a diehard Laker fan. Still bleed purple and gold, but love the Bay. So yeah.
Great. I'm glad we brought Lakers up early in this conversation. That's important.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, why don't we get started with? We're going to talk about life advice today. So you came up with some advice for my son and your son and anybody who's listening to this. Love to hear the first one.
Yeah, I mean, if I only had a chance to give one, I'd give the first one I'm going to give. It's the kind of the be all end all for me, which is do everything with integrity. Period. For me, that's the most important thing I'm going to impart on my child. My wife and I kind of predict that early on in his life, she'll be the enforcer. So, if he wants something and we don't want him to have it, she'll be like, no, you can't have it. And if he cries, so what? I'm the mom. That's it. And like, maybe I'll cave more. But as he gets older, and starts to know, more right from wrong, what right from wrong really is. And if I perhaps see him step out of integrity, that's when we both know I'm going to step in and talk about, hey, that's not how we treat others. That's not how we show up in the world, that kind of thing. So for me, do everything with integrity.
What does integrity mean to you?
Making choices and taking actions that are rooted in what you know to be right every time. Treating others with respect, just showing up in the world in a way that, is, again, kind of based on your own barometer for the world, which you know to be right and the right thing to do.
Interesting. And how do you impart that to somebody? How do you impart that to your son or just in general?
I don't know. I haven't got there yet because he's only 17 months old, but my gut tells me, and what I've done with young people that I've mentored, because I have had other children and mentees in my life. I think it's a combination of role modeling. So, if I'm gonna ask for that level of showing up in the world with integrity, then I need to always do it. And if I feel like I ever step out of it, I need to course correct. And then what I've done with mentees in the past is, if I have done something that I thought maybe stepped out of that, I'll go course correct. I'll go apologize or take an action that helps make right the situation. And then I might even let somebody know, hey, I messed up, and explain to them, like, here's how I messed up. Here's how I tried to remedy it. So I think a combination of that, role modeling and proactive affirmations, like when he does something with integrity, I'm going to let him know I saw it and that I appreciate it and that it's amazing.
Interesting. Good. I think when my son was 17 months old, I thought a lot about that. And then as it gotten older, it's just hard to it's a really hard thing to teach in terms of, just hard to explain. I just have had a hard time trying to figure that out because I think that, like already as children, their world is so different than my world was.
Yeah.
Like for example, in his preschool, there was like a transgender kid already. And so he never has like, there's no issues around homosexuality or anything around that
Gender
because
expression. Yeah.
because it's all like part of who he, so it's like, it's really interesting to see. In fact, like in a lot of ways, like my childhood, like when I look at things, I'm like, oh, that's like in my childhood, that wouldn't have worked out very well. But I have to check myself because now it's like a totally different world. You know what I mean? So it's really interesting already in a lot of ways. Like he's more progressive than I could ever be because he grew up in a world that is already progressive.
Well, and I consider myself progressive. I'm already open to him teaching me new things, and I even think about in my brain the way that I call him all the time. You'll like in the intro, you heard me say child, then I default to him because that's where my brain goes. But I'll be watching to make sure that I'm not trying to put him in a gender box that maybe as he gets older, that's not how he sees himself, and I'm open to that, and I'm open to his teachings.
Yeah, but I think most of those kids are like most of the kids who have any kind of gender expression stuff. Usually it's like
non-binary.
Yeah, they already like you could tell like there's kids in his class already like that, and it's like and their parents are semi.
Yeah, I think when you get to be like a couple, 2-3 years old,
2 or 3, you start to already figure out like because it is really interesting to kind of see that stuff. But because
just real quick, if anybody's interested in this topic, and this is not a topic like non-binary identity and transgender identity and parenting, if this is something that's new to you and you're interested in it, there's a great show called I Am Jazz, and it's a family that raises their daughter who knows herself to be their daughter even though was biologically born male, and amazing show. So
where is it on?
I think it's TLC. You can get it on demand.
Okay.
She's amazing. She's an amazing woman.
Yeah.
She's now in college, I think. But
great. Well, I'd love to hear your next piece of advice.
The only way through something is through something.
What do you mean by that?
So life is going to throw you all kinds of challenges all the time. Life's a series of triumphs and challenges. And, for where I'm sitting, when I'm going through something, instead of like trying to avoid it or think it away or take on a different distraction so that I'm not thinking about the challenge, I try not to do that. And I'm in it until I get through it. So, if I have to think about it, if I have to take actions to remedy it, the only way through something is through something. There is no cheat code to a challenge. And when you get on the other side, you'll be stronger and, better for it.
Yeah. This is one of the things that in jiu-jitsu with my son that he had to learn early was that he wanted to fight the people that he could beat easily. Yeah. And then I told him stop fighting those people because you could easily beat them. You need to fight the people that you can't beat. Because you have to choose them because those are the people that are going to make you better. Because if you're just choosing like the people you could beat, then you're not getting better. And it's like, it's the same way in life. If you're just choosing the stuff that is easy because you want to avoid the hard, you'll never get through what you need to get through in order to become successful, and whatever that means, success, right?
Right. It's different for everybody. I think like I probably have a slightly different take on that for myself and my parenting style, but what you're saying resonates. So, like I used to play basketball with people better than me because I wanted to be better. The end goal for me is not so that I can beat others, but that's cool. No shame in your framework. But for me, like the tenet that you're spitting is solid. Like surround yourself in people that will help elevate your game. So that if you want to be better at something, you get better at that.
Well, the only reason I say better is because we're doing tournaments and stuff. And so if he wants to win in tournaments,
sure.
How you get better is by facing people that are better. Like you said, facing better people, then he gets better, and then he'll be able to do better in the tournament and stuff. But
yeah, I believe in that.
But I think for me, sports is just an analogy for life that the lessons you learn in the sports are important because I don't want him to necessarily be a professional jiu-jitsu person, but I want him to be able to, when he sees something tough in his life, not to avoid it, but to go for it and to try to make it through. But I love that piece of advice. I think that's really interesting. How would you teach that to your son?
I think it'll be the way we talk. Like Takao, if you're listening to this one day and the challenge in front of you is like you got your heart broken, you know, because of a bad breakup, or you know, someone you love, you know, you aren't with them anymore. Like that's one of those. The only way through it is through it. And time is undefeated. Time heals all, but you got to go through it. So I think I would talk to my child like I'm like talking to the future Takao, like, you know, if we have that kind of relationship, you know, let's talk about what's wrong. Let's stay there. Let's work through it. Why does it hurt? How does it feel? So that one's, I think, less about role modeling and more about hopefully having a solid enough relationship with Nico to dialogue through it.
Yeah. One of my friends, actually, I was just talking to another parent at the playground, and we were talking about how actually he thinks it's in high school where parents and kids start to figure out like what kind of relationship they're going to have the rest of their lives, and how much the kid could come to the parents, and that like a lot of parents, they check out at the middle school age, and that like that's the opposite of what you should do. Like you shouldn't be like crazy, like, you know, overbearing about it, but like that's when you want to create like a new kind of relationship that will build until like as you get into college and adulthood and stuff like that. So I think about that advice a lot, because you know, like middle school kids have a lot of attitude and they think they know everything already.
Hey,
but, you know.
I always think like my job is really hard, but I can't think of a harder job on the planet than being a middle school teacher. Shout out to out there.
Yeah, those middle school kids. When I was doing substitute teaching, middle school kids were the craziest, because little kids I could scare into like listening to me because I'm just older, and then the bigger kids I could just, you know, like I usually like would treat them, if I treat them like adults, they usually like acted like adults for the most part. But the middle school kids are too little to act like adults, but they're too big to be scared.
Yeah,
and so they're like, and then their hormones and, you know, all the pressures and stuff are all like happening at the same time, right? So it's a tough age.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a very different place even right now than I am. We're in very different stages of parenthood right now, but you know, hey, the journey is the destination, and you know, I look forward to all the phases. Although I already miss little baby Nico.
Oh yeah, I definitely miss the like 3-year-old version of him.
Yeah.
But okay, well, let's hear the third piece of advice.
Get yourself a crew. And the caveat, you know, the subtext to that is, you know, get yourself a group of friends, get yourself a crew that shares your value and is made up of the same character as you.
Okay.
They don't have to have the same interests. They can have different even levels of ambition, although it's good to be around people that have a similar drive. But get yourself a crew that shares your values, made up of the same character, and like, you know, you're unstoppable if you got that. Everybody needs a crew.
That's interesting. I've actually had a couple episodes, or maybe like 5 episodes ago, I had the superintendent of Linwood Unified, and he said that he could tell, like, I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said like he could tell like how well the student's going to do when he looks at their friend.
Yeah, I buy it in a second.
Yeah.
You know, and it's more than looking at the friends, right? Because you got to you got to have a sense of their friends, because
of course. When he's just looking at
more than meets the eye to some, right?
Like what kind of students they are, what's happening at home.
Yeah.
Like not just physically looking at, but gauging the kinds of people they are.
I mean, it's true. I look at who I ended up with in college with you and, you know, and Brian and Max and Todd and everybody, and you know, we're still friends with everybody from that crew, and have like followed each other's careers and now parenthood and you know, romantic relationships, and we've all gotten more and more different as we've gotten older than we were when we were in college together, I think, in my opinion, but not on the value tip and not on the character tip. And you know, I think to be made of the same fabric as the people that you surround yourself in, assuming that you yourself got that right fabric, then, you know, it's like a superpower to have a crew.
Yeah, no, I think that's really great. Actually, it's funny because we've done 42 or 43 of these episodes, and nobody's ever talked about the circle of friends, like other than the Linwood Unified superintendent. But he was talking more in terms of school itself and how to be better in school. But in terms of life, that's really interesting. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, and like you get to follow each other and root each other on for life if you're really close, like family. Like, you know, Brian and I talk about sometimes who you had on your show, who's part of our crew from the college days. Me and him used to, like in college, we'd be drinking and like pointing at the sky, like, yo, we're going to the top. Like we're gonna achieve our dreams, and we would egg each other on positively. Like, let's go, let's follow our dreams. Let's let's work at our craft, let's aspire to the next level. And maybe we're not doing it quite the same as we did, when we were 18, 19, but we're still having those conversations. We got to have a conversation like that a couple of days ago. So it's a lifelong treasure. If you crew up, and over time you might change crews, and that's okay too. There's another lesson for another time in there, but and you can have multiple crews, but get yourself a crew that's made up of what you're made up of, and it'll be like a lifelong treasure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I love that. The only caveat I would put on that is that I think there is value when they're of the, like, there are people that you're not dating or you can't date. So that it's more of like
right.
Like for example, like there was a time in my life where all my friends were females, and most of which I've dated at some point, and that was just like that didn't make for a great group of people around, even though they're all very successful.
Sure.
Like I needed people that I wasn't going to, that we weren't, like, me and you would never date. And that, like, and we
not that a woman can't be a crew member without dating.
No, but it was like, but those are the kinds of people I was choosing. Yeah. Like I think it's just stronger when it's like sometimes in my life, at least, it was very useful when it was like people that were just my friends, as opposed to hyphenated other things and complicated relationships. And in a lot of ways, I needed that, like, for me, I needed that guyness in order to help me grow as a person at the time.
I think that makes sense. I mean, that's the thing about any guidance or advice that gets given in Guy Code. It's always, nuanced and shaped to whoever the individual is that's absorbing or adopting that. So I've got, other crews of people, like the homies from my doctoral program at the University of San Francisco, like my friend Melissa and my friend Belinda and my friend Amy, and like most of the like badass, fierce educators I know are like queer women of color or women of color. And, that's another crew too. So it depends on the individual.
Yeah. And the time, I think, in your life. All right. Well, let me hear your fourth one. This is the fourth one.
Yeah. All right. So the fourth one is follow the platinum rule.
What's the platinum rule?
So everybody's heard of the golden rule, right? And it's considered to be sort of like the bar that we set for how we carry ourselves in life, which is do unto others as you would want done unto you. I would argue that that's a highly problematic way to live our lives, and that there's hidden marginalization and oppression in that rule. And that what we should be really following and aspiring to is the platinum rule, which is do unto others as they would want done unto them. In other words, one size does not fit all. We know, in this country and around the world, institutions and systems are built in the image of like heterosexual, cisgender white men, able-bodied, so forth. And so, if I was to take my worldview as like a white and Jewish, cisgender, heterosexual, mostly able-bodied man, and treat everybody the way I want to be treated, then that might not be how they want. And so we really got to flip that and learn and seek to understand those that we're in community with and show up the way they need, not the way we would want. And I think that works for like interpersonal relationships too, romantic relationships, father-child relationships. So yeah, follow the platinum rule.
That's really interesting. I've never heard that either, but I love that. And it kind of goes to, I mean, on a tangent, it kind of goes to me and Takao were talking about equity versus equality. Mm-hmm. Why we strive for
exactly right.
Right. But in terms of friendship or personal relationships, you're not trying to treat everyone equally. You're trying to treat people understanding that there's all these other things. And sometimes some people need different kinds of things that you might not even know because of your own whatever prejudices or just ignorance of things. And not even like ignorance in a bad way, but just you might not know. And you kind of have to think about what they need. That's really, and I think it goes a lot to empathy as well. Right. Having like understanding that other people have other needs. One of the things that really drives me crazy about the political system here is, I always hear, and this is not just conservatives, but typically it was conservatives that, they always say, I hated gay people, but now my cousin is gay or my brother is gay. And then, and I'm like, well, you don't need to have a cousin who's gay in order to be okay with gay marriage, or you don't need to have a black, like your sister doesn't need to marry a black man before you're okay with black people. I could do that without any of that happening to me. Like,
sadly though, that's how it happens so often. I mean, yeah. But I that equity versus equality thing is big. I mean, I think we need to be teaching young people about equity and not equality from an early age, and try our best to explain, what that looks like, because that's a really important point.
Yeah, because I mean, I think that's where a lot of the political conversations go wrong, in terms of that we're trying to treat everyone equally, but no one starts equally. Even as an Asian American, we have some advantages as an Asian American, but it's still different, right? And then you compare Asians to other groups of people, it's different. You can't treat all groups equally, because the marginalization has been very different.
It's like saying, hey, the dopest party that ever got thrown is being thrown on the third floor right now. Everybody's invited. Like, I don't discriminate. Whoever you are, come to the dopest party of all time. Also, there's no elevator. So if you can't climb the stair, sorry, you're invited.
Yeah.
So equality that's equality. Equity would be like, there's a way for everybody to get up to that party.
Or even get to the party itself, like cars or or being safe to get to the party, like not being
being safe once at the party.
Yeah, being safe once at the party. Yeah. Those are all really, really different things, And I think what's been interesting for me and Takao took a trip to through like really, really rural parts of California, and it was really interesting for him to see, like, like I didn't feel safe. I brought a weapon with me, because I didn't feel like I knew I wasn't gonna, like, an Asian guy with a mask, like in like places that like Asian people aren't, like I just wasn't sure how people would react. And it's eye-opening, because when we're in LA, for the most part, being Asian's okay. I mean, you still get a little bit of hate, but it's not like I'm never, like, my life's not in danger. But like it's eye-opening to see that. And then like him and I had conversations where, like, if we were African American, it's a different situation. Like it's like this more places, and we have to be more cognizant of where we are, what we're doing. But very, very interesting. I really like the platinum rule. I'm gonna have to talk to him about that.
Yeah, it's the first time I heard it, it blew my mind, and then as I've sat with it over the years, I've really come to understand the magic of that as the rule to end all rules.
Yeah, interesting. All right, well, let's hear your last piece of advice.
Yeah, last piece of advice is there are omens everywhere. Follow them, and the subtext to that is there are only positive omens. There are no negative omens. So if you see signs that you're going the wrong way, they're not signs, right? But if you see signs that you're going the right way and you choose to make meaning out of those signs, then keep on that path. I believe that there's magic everywhere in the world. I believe that we are meaning makers. And I believe that when we aspire to achieve, all the universe conspires to help us, which is a paraphrase off of Paulo Coelho quote. And so I look for omens everywhere. I look to make meaning out of those omens. I don't believe in indications that I'm going the wrong direction, but I do see that I'm going the right direction everywhere I look if I choose to do so.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When I heard omens, I thought negative, but
yeah, I only believe in positive omens. And I think, I believe in the universe. Me and the universe are in relationship. I'm not sure exactly what the higher power is, but I believe in the magic of the universe. And the thing about, like, this is tied into like my whole kind of spiritual understanding of the world. So I believe there are positive omens everywhere. I believe the universe will conspire to help us if we partner with the universe. And I believe that, like much of the time, it's not going to look like what we had in our mind, right? So like I might aspire, to something, and then it doesn't play out that way, and I'm super disappointed and sad, and like I'm beefing with the universe all of a sudden. Like, I'm kind of cursing at the universe for, I thought I was on track for this, and now it didn't happen. I'm really disappointed. I'm losing faith in the universe. And then suddenly, like, the plan reveals itself. It's much better than what I had in mind. I got there because of how I got there. Some of it was failure. And then the universe comes back and goes, oh, my dear friend, pats me on the head. And it's like, that's so cute. You yet again doubted me. And look where you landed. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. It just doesn't look what you thought. But I had a plan. You just got to work with me. Right. And so that kind of is like the 2-minute version of my spiritual philosophy that, will be kind of how I'm showing up in the world in front of my child, as he grows up.
Do you think it's destiny, or do you think it's like that you write your own?
I think we partner with the universe. I don't believe in preordained. I think we're meaning makers, right? But the world is written with meaning if we choose to see it.
Yeah.
I don't believe coincidences are just like some mundane thing that happened. I believe there's poetry in all our decisions, and if we believe in the magic of the world, then the world's going to reveal its magic. And so, no, I don't believe in like a preordained fate, but I do believe that the universe has a plan for us if we partner with them, and it's malleable and it can change depending on where you go. But like, take this down to a little level. If I'm giving career advice, I don't do the, hey, pick a goal and work towards that goal on a linear path. My career advice to college students and others is like, plant seeds everywhere, soulfully, based on your interests and your passions, your skill sets, and then see which ones start to grow. Chances are it's because you're watering those ones. Like, that's where you're putting your attention, your time, your energy, your passion. And take note of that, because those are the ones that you maybe should start following. And that's not necessarily like a set a goal and go for it. It's, sprinkle seeds of interest everywhere, and stay passionate, stay alert, and make meaning of the ones that seem to be growing, and chase that.
Yeah. Well, that's like when I talk to students, I always tell them finding out you don't want to do something is as important as finding out you want to do something. Like, so if you do it and you realize that it's not like what you want to do, that's valuable, because it's not a waste of time. Because now I don't want to do that anymore. Then you can figure out what you want to do. But it reminds me, your philosophy reminds me a lot of the third man. Have you ever heard of the third man?
No.
It's like it's a paranormal kind of thing. But basically, when a lot of people are in really perilous situations, like there's a lot of cases where they'll imagine somebody with them. They'll like see somebody with them who encourages them to keep going. Like in a lot of the explorers on mountains, or like there's a really famous one from like Antarctica where they're all dying, and then somebody's there and like, go, you have to keep going. You're almost there. And they're like talking to this person this whole time. And then they finally get there, they survive, and they're like, who's that guy? And everyone's like, what are you talking about? There's no guy. Like, we're the only people surviving. And there's a lot of those cases where people are near death, and they see somebody who encourages them to keep pushing. And so I think about that a lot when you're kind of in these struggles where, whether that's a person or a universe or just your own messed up imagination trying to encourage you, it doesn't really matter because that person's there.
I think that's amazing. I actually think that's amazing. This would be the one, if you decided to ask me the follow-up question of like, how do you teach that? This would be the hardest one, because it's like a whole framework, right? It's a whole way I live my life. So I don't actually know if I can teach this one, and maybe this isn't the spiritual framework that Nico decides to have or Takao will take on. But I guess the one way I would try to teach it is I'm just going to teach Nico to flirt with the world his whole life. Like, flirt with people, flirt with animals, flirt with plants, flirt with cities. Cities have a rhythm. Flirt with it. Like, everything is like an adventure. Get lost, throw the map away, like, flirt every opportunity you have with the world. And hopefully the world then opens up to you the way, I'm describing that I work with to try to have me and the universe have the world open up. So that's the best I'll be able to do. I think that's a really hard one to teach.
Yeah, I know that's really hard. And I think about there's also another phrase. I'm into paranormal stuff, and like one of the things that they say when you look at the paranormal looks back at you. But I think also a lot of times when you look for signs, you'll find the signs.
Yeah, that's what I mean by meaning makers.
Yeah, like we'll find like things that like speak to us, and if that's what you need to help you push through something, then that could be really useful depending on the situation and the circumstances.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard that. That was interesting from you. I've never heard that from you, so that's great. I'm learning something new during this talk as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of this is like over time become my own philosophies, but I think a lot of it started out when I was 19 and read The Alchemist, which I found to be like life-changing when I was 19. So many people have read that book and got a lot out of it, and it tends to find people when it should. And I shout out to Paulo Coelho, because I think the beginnings of my spiritual philosophies were rooted in that book, and then have become my own since then.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think I've gone the other way. Like I look for less signs than I used to. I think when I was young, I looked for a lot of signs, and then nowadays I'm just kind of like, well, it is what it is. And
I can feel that creeping. I can feel that creeping in
yeah,
sometimes, and so I actively try to fight that. You know, there are like real tangible ways to keep this going too. Like never
yeah,
stop listening to new music. Now I'm sneaking in some other advice, but
yeah,
like never stop listening to new music. Like that's how you get old. And not that being old is bad. I mean old like tired and losing your lust for life, not like age, which is a beautiful thing.
yeah,
But like that's how you get, you know, these little things. Like you stop listening to new music, you stop reading new books, you stop looking at art if you're interested in that. And you know, so I feel you. I feel it creeping.
yeah.
My job beats me up. You know, like I work, I'm tired. You
Well,
know,
I think I don't think in a negative though. Like for me, it's not a negative way. For me, it's more of like a contentedness. Like
okay,
I'm more secure, and I'm not like I'm secure in my writing. I'm secure in my career. I'm secure in like my family and what's going on, and I'm less like needing to something to push me, and
got you.
like you know, like for example, like my writing is my career now. It's not
Yeah.
something I'm striving to do. It's something that
Okay.
you know what I mean. Like
No,
that's what
I
I mean.
totally know what you mean. This is resonating.
Yeah,
Like, okay, that makes that I feel the same way.
yeah,
So we share that. I
yeah,
totally resonating with me because I'm in my dream job. I, you know, I've got the hottest woman in the game, you know, wearing my name.
yeah,
You know, I have this most amazing child ever.
yeah,
Um, and so yeah, there's a you say contentedness. I'm I'm more still.
yeah.
There's a stillness to me. I'm less tortured. I'm less, um, you know. So I get what you're saying now, and I actually feel that way too.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Well, I guess we're just getting older then. And I mean, it's also just like you said, a calmness of the mind. Like I'm not like I don't
Yeah,
need like for example, like I'm okay not knowing now. Like I'm just like, well, I don't know everything. I'm
yeah,
fine. And I'm
yeah.
fine with that. Before I'm like trying to search and search and search. And now it's more of like, well, it is what it is. Like, and I like, you know, I want to keep learning, and I love new music, and I love like I read new stuff, and like I love art, and I like exploring things. You know, like one of my favorite things I do with the cows, we go drive. We
Yeah,
don't have a destination. I mean, like next year we're gonna drive around the country for like 2 months and just
nice.
not have like a place to be. And you know, like I've never wanted to do that before, because it's always like before it's like I want to get to New York City. I want to, you know, like I had a
Got you.
specific plan, but like now it's like, well, let's just drive and see what happens. And if we end up like in some random place, and we could camp or we could stay at a hotel or whatever, you know, like it's much easier for me now to do that.
It's amazing. I will say like one of my big dreams now as a parent is like I see you with Takao, and I hope Nico and I are that close
Yeah,
as he gets older. I love how close the two of you are. You know, I hope Nico and I are some kind of shade of best friend, even though, you know, I'm still parent. But I see you as parent and best friend, and it's amazing.
yeah, yeah,
And I love it. I love watching that, and I hope for that too.
yeah. It's tough though, because you know, like it's a lot of time and and
Yeah,
effort and stuff. But it's still it is one thing I will complain about though about the whole thing is that, you know, no matter how close I like, 'cause I volunteer at the school, for example, and
yeah,
I do all that stuff, and then they still call Marsha. And I'm like like for example, I talk to the, like, you know, the administrators, the school administrators. I talk to them
yeah,
every day, and I see them every day. I'm there all the time volunteering. And then when he gets sick, they call her, who has to call me anyway to go pick
yeah,
him up. And I'm always like, wait, why, like, why are you calling her? She, you know, like, you've never even seen her in your life. But the default is always to call the mom, right?
yeah,
Not to call the dad. Because most of the time, a lot of the dads are worthless. I get that. But, you know, like you
yeah.
keep, you, so
You're
it is
like,
interesting.
you're like, call me. I'm not worthless. I'm a great dad. And
Yeah.
by the way, like my wife is a badass boss.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so call me.
Yeah. Who's just going to call me anyway? You know,
Yeah,
like, he's just going to have to
yeah,
call me.
yeah,
I'm going to be the one that picking him up anyway. So,
yeah,
but hopefully the world is changing a little bit. I mean, I've seen changes between me when I was like when my kid was your kid's age, and you know, like, and now things are a little bit different. But even when I was like, I remember walking around at malls with my son, in a stroller, and they'd say like, "Oh, is mommy having a mom day, like at a spa?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No, mom works." Like.
Yeah, I mean, I see that too. Like I see the way people smile at me, like especially when he was like younger, and I'd have him, like I'd walk out of the restaurant or something,
Yeah.
And I'm holding him and I'm calming him down or whatever. I see everybody like beaming at me. It's like you get bonus points.
Yeah.
As a man or a father in a way that I don't think the mothers or moms get.
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh, that's expected. But when a man does it, it's like extra bonus points, like extra credit for being a good dad, which is problematic, obviously.
Yeah. But I mean, there is truth in that. Like even if, like when my son was really young, the advice I told him for if he ever got lost from me was to find a mom, a woman with children, because most of the time the mom with children, they'll get you to like somebody that could help, but most likely the moms are like, I'm gonna save this kid, like whereas like
100%, like 100%. I agree with that, and like I would give the same advice. I'm saying like we don't deserve the extra credit.
No, for sure not.
But like moms reign supreme.
It just means that dads need to step up, I think, in a lot of times.
We do.
That there's just not a lot of like, even like, I mean, that's one of the best things about the pandemic to me is like when we're biking around, I see like dads that like I've never seen before, and that just means that they're home, like, and now they're able to play baseball or hang out with their kid, and that before they weren't able to.
Right? Even me, who I aspire to be the best dad I can and to carry my weight in this family so that the burden's not all falling on Monica, but had I been working in the office, which I haven't done since March at the university, I would come home and only have a couple hours with him during Monday through Friday. And the one silver lining of being in this awful pandemic that's hurt so many lives, is that I'm home, and with so many hours, if I have a 20-minute break, I can go spend it with him.
Sure.
I can make lunch for him. So it's been amazing for me to be able to be home during these years of, this time of his life.
Yeah. No, I agree. And like for me, it's been interesting because now it's like 24 hours a day. It just makes it a lot harder to do work, to do my work. But because before I'd at least have like 8:30 to 2:30 to like focus and get all my meetings and everything done. And then after that, it was like, there's no me time after 2:30. It's just, as they get older, like they have a lot of things that they're doing, and they I start being the driver. And then like now, like the funniest thing was like, we go to like hockey practice and I'd be on my phone the whole time. And then my wife would get mad at me because she's like, "Why aren't you watching?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm like on Saturday we'd watch it, and then I would be on the phone, and she'd be like, "Why aren't you watching?" I'm like, "I watched this all week." Like, like I don't need to see it. I don't need to see it right now. I'm fine. Yeah. But for her, it's like new because she's at work and stuff, and she's obviously like not able to see that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's always interesting. But anyway, thank you, Garrett, so much for coming on. Really appreciate finally getting you on the show, and we'll get you on the Best or Worst podcast as well. So thank you, everyone. And thank you everyone for listening. Please rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. That's how we're going to keep getting forward. And if you liked any of the advice that Garrett got, please let a friend know and tell them about the show, and come back next Wednesday to listen to the next episode. Thank you, Garrett. Thank you, everyone. Peace out.